The tabernacle, according to the Hebrew Bible, was the portable dwelling place for the divine presence from the time of the Exodus from Egypt through the conquering of the land of Canaan, built of gold, silver, brass, furs, jewels, and other valuable materials taken out of Egypt at God's orders and according to specifications revealed by God to Moses at Mount Sinai. It was transported by the Israelites on their journey through the wilderness and the conquest of the Promised Land. The first temple in Jerusalem superseded it as the dwelling place of God some 300 years later. The fullest description of the tabernacle describes an inner shrine housing the Ark of the Covenant, which is under the veil of the covering, suspended by 4 pillars in an outer chamber with beaten gold made into what is generally described as a lampstand or candlestick with a central shaft incorporating 4 almond-shaped bowls and 6 branches, each holding 3 bowls shaped like almonds and blossoms, 22 in all, as described in Exodus chapter 25, standing diagonally, partially covering a table for showbread, and altar of incense. This description is generally identified as part of the priestly source, written in the 6th or 5th century BCE. Many scholars contend that it is of a far later date than Moses, and that the description reflects the structure of the Temple of Solomon, while some hold that the description derives from memories of a real pre-monarchic shrine, perhaps the sanctuary at Shiloh. Traditional scholars contend that it describes an actual tabernacle used in the time of Moses and thereafter. According to historical criticism, an earlier, pre-exilic source describes the tabernacle as a simple tent sanctuary, meaning. Other uses of this word include a nautical, meaning a mast step, which by its arrangement of boards allows the mast to be raised and lowered, and a similar wooden bar scaffold used for holding a large rug while weaving. The word sanctuary is also used for the biblical tabernacle, as well as the phrase the tent of meeting. The Hebrew word mishkan implies dwell, rest, or to live in, referring to the indwelling presence of God, the Shekinah, based on the same Hebrew root word as mishkan, that dwelt within this divinely ordained structure. Dugong hypothesis. The 19th century naturalist Edward Ruppel equated the Arabic word tukish with tahash. From this he deduced that the tabernacle was covered with hides from the dugong or sea cow, and designated the animal halak or tabernaculi. Modern academic opinion considers this reading of tahash uncertain. Description. Historical criticism has identified 2 accounts of the tabernacle in Exodus, a briefer account and a longer one. Traditional scholars believe the briefer account describes a different structure, perhaps Moses' personal tent. The Hebrew nouns in the 2 accounts are different, one being most commonly translated as tent of meeting, while the other is usually translated as tabernacle. Elohist account Exodus chapter 33 verses 7 to 10 refers to the tabernacle of the congregation, which was set up outside of camp with the cloudy pillar visible at its door. The people directed their worship toward this center. Historical criticism attributes this description to the Elohist source, which is believed to have been written about 850 BCE or later. Priestly account. The more detailed description of a tabernacle is in Exodus chapters 25 to 27 and Exodus chapters 35 to 40, which describes an inner shrine housing the ark in an outer chamber, with a 6-branch 7-lamp menorah, table for showbread, and altar of incense. An enclosure containing the sacrificial altar and bronze laver for the priest to wash surrounded these chambers. This description is identified by historical criticism as part of the priestly source, written in the 6th or 5th century BCE. Some scholars believe the description is of a far later date than Moses, and that it reflects the structure of the Temple of Solomon. Others hold that the passage describes a real pre-monarchic shrine, perhaps the sanctuary at Shiloh, while traditional scholars contend that it describes an actual tabernacle used in the time of Moses and thereafter. This view is based on Exodus chapter 36, 37, 38 and 39 that describe in full detail how the actual construction of the tabernacle took place during the time of Moses. The detailed outlines for the tabernacle and its priests are enumerated in the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 25. Materials needed: the ark, the table for 12 showbread, the menorah. Exodus chapter 26. The tabernacle, the bars, partitions. Exodus chapter 27. The copper altar, the enclosure, oil. Exodus chapter 28. Vestments for the priests, ephod garment, ring settings, the breastplate, robe, headplate, tunic, turban, sashes, pants. Exodus chapter 29. Consecration of priests and altar. Exodus chapter 30. Incense altar, washstand, anointing oil, incense. Builders. In chapter 31 the main builder and architects are specified. God spoke to Moses, saying, I have selected Bezalel son of Uri son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, by name. I have filled him with a divine spirit, with wisdom, understanding and knowledge, and with all types of craftsmanship. He will be able to devise plans as well as work in gold, silver and copper, cut stones to be set, carve wood, and do other work. I have also given him Oholiab son of Achisamach of the tribe of Dan. I have placed wisdom in the heart of every naturally talented person. They will thus make all that I have ordered: the communion tent, the ark of the covenant, the ark cover to go on it, all the utensils for the tent, the table and its utensils, the pure menorah and all its utensils, the incense altar, the sacrificial altar and all its utensils, the washstand and its base, the packing cloths, the sacred vestments for Aaron the priest, the vestments that his sons wear to serve, the anointing oil, and the incense for the sanctuary. They will thus do all that I command. Restrictions. There was a set of strict rules to be followed for the tabernacle set on the Old Testament. For example, for the Lord had said to Moses, exempt the tribe of Levi from the census, do not include them when you count the rest of the Israelites. You must put the Levites in charge of the tabernacle of the covenant, along with its furnishings and equipment. They must carry the tabernacle and its equipment as you travel, and they must care for it and camp around it. Whenever the tabernacle is moved, the Levites will take it down and set it up again. Anyone else who goes too near the tabernacle will be executed. Plan. The tabernacle during the Exodus, the wandering in the desert and the conquest of Canaan was a portable tent draped with colorful curtains called a tent of meeting. It had a rectangular, perimeter fence of fabric, poles and staked cords. This rectangle was always erected when the Israelite tribes would camp, oriented to the east. In the center of this enclosure was a rectangular sanctuary draped with goat hair curtains, with the roof made from ram's skins. Inside, the enclosure was divided into two areas, the holy place and the most holy place. These two areas were separated by a curtain or veil. This allowed for the ark to be held up by its two staves crossing over and being held by the middle bar of the two sides 7.5 feet up into the smoke. Inside the first area were 3 pieces of furniture: a 6-branched oil lampstand on the left, a table for 12 loaves of showbread on the right, and the altar of incense. Straight ahead before the dividing curtain, veil. Beyond this curtain was the cube-shaped inner room known as the Holy of Holies, or this area housed the Ark of the Covenant, inside which were the 2 stone tablets brought down from Mount Sinai by Moses, on which were written the 10 Commandments, a golden urn holding the manna, and Aaron's rod which had budded and borne ripe almonds. Top view, parallel projection of tabernacle. Tabernacle tent dimensions according to the Book of Exodus. Tabernacle tent and courtyard dimensions according to the Book of Exodus. Rituals. Twice a day, a priest would stand in front of the golden prayer altar and burn fragrant incense. Other procedures were also carried out in the tabernacle. The daily meal offering. Leviticus chapter 6 verses 8 to 30. Guilt offerings and peace offerings. Leviticus chapter 7. Ceremony of ordination. Leviticus chapter 8. Octave of ordination. Leviticus chapter 9. Wine forbidden to priests in the tabernacle. Leviticus chapter 10 verses 8 to 15. Day of Atonement. Leviticus chapter 16. Sacrifice only at the tabernacle. Leviticus chapter 17. Ordeal for suspected adulteresses. Numbers chapter 5 verses 11 to 29. Dedication of Nazarites. Numbers chapter 6 verses 1 to 21. Preparation of the ashes of a red heifer for the water of purification. Numbers chapter 19. The door of the tabernacle marked a ritual boundary. An Israelite healed of leprosy would be presented by the priest who had confirmed his healing, at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and a woman healed of prolonged menstruation would present her offering to the priest, at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. It was at the door of the tabernacle that the community wept in sorrow when all the men who had joined in worship to Baal of Peor were condemned to death. Dust from the floor of the tabernacle was mixed with water to create the bitter water used for the test of a suspected adulteress. Subsequent history of the tabernacle. During the conquest of Canaan, the main Israelite camp was at Gilgal, and the tabernacle was probably erected within the camp. Joshua chapter 10 verse 43 ESV. And returned into the camp, after the conquest and division of the land among the tribes. The tabernacle was moved to Shiloh in Ephraimite territory to avoid disputes among the other tribes. It remained there during the 300-year period of the biblical judges. The subsequent history of the structure is separate from that of the Ark of the Covenant. After the Ark was captured by the Philistines, King Saul moved the tabernacle to Nob, near his hometown of Gibeah. But after he massacred the priests there, it was moved to Gibon. The Ark was eventually brought to Jerusalem, where it was placed inside the tent David had pitched for it, not in the tabernacle, which remained at Gibon. The altar of the tabernacle at Gibon was used for sacrificial worship, until Solomon finally brought the structure and its furnishings to Jerusalem to furnish and dedicate the temple. There is no mention of the tabernacle in the Tanakh after the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple by the Babylonians in c. 587 BCE. Relationship to the golden calf. Some rabbis have commented on the proximity of the narrative of the tabernacle with that of the episode known as the sin of the golden calf recounted in Exodus chapter 32 verses 1 to 6. Maimonides asserts that the tabernacle and its accoutrements, such as the golden Ark of the Covenant and the golden menorah, were meant as alternates to the human weakness and needs for physical idols as seen in the golden calf episode. Other scholars, such as Nachmanides, disagree and maintain that the tabernacle's meaning is not tied in with the golden calf, but instead symbolizes higher mystical lessons that symbolize God's constant closeness to the children of Israel. Blueprint for synagogues. Synagogue construction over the last 2,000 years has followed the outlines of the original tabernacle. Every synagogue has at its front an ark, Aaron Kodesh, containing the Torah scrolls, comparable to the Ark of the Covenant, which contained the tablets with 10 commandments. This is the holiest spot in a synagogue, equivalent to the Holy of Holies. There is also usually a constantly lighted lamp, ner tamid, or a candelabrum, lighted during services, near a spot similar to the position of the original menorah. At the center of the synagogue is a large elevated area, known as the bima, where the Torah is read. This is equivalent to the tabernacle's altars upon which incense and animal sacrifices were offered. On the main holidays the priests, Kohanim, gather at the front of the synagogue to bless the congregation, as did their priestly ancestors in the tabernacle from Aaron onwards. New Testament references. The tabernacle is mentioned several times in the Epistle to the Hebrews in the New Testament. For example, according to Hebrews chapter 8 verses 2 to 5 and 9 to 2-26, Jesus serves as the true climactic high priest in heaven, the true tabernacle, to which its counterpart on earth was just a symbol and foreshadow of what was to come.